G'day warbanders and welcome back to another video. This time talking about Fields of History, The Great War, which is another grand strategy game coming out very soon, it says. It's published by Microprose and developed by Wolferus Productions. The modders behind the Great War mod for Hearts of Iron 4. Again, on the surface level of this game, it's very similar to Hearts of Iron 4, which is a good thing and bad thing. You know, it's a real-time war game set in the First World War beginning in the 1910s. On a grand scale, so we're not looking at the tactical layer, we're looking at managing corps and armies. As I said before, it's made by former Hearts of Iron 4 modders, so they should know how to make a grand strategy game, hopefully. And I also played the Great War mod, which is a great thing. Definitely increased my enjoyment of Hearts of Iron 4 years ago, but that was years ago, so the game's offering a ton of features like a political system, different government types, historical events and decisions, 250 technologies and 300 military units equipment. So I think that's a huge sticking point there, is that there's going to be a lot of technologies, which is good because it's the First World War. The First World War had a lot of rapid, technologies that were coming in. I think that's important to have in a World War I war game, and having all these different types of units is going to make it feel very varied because, we're looking at a very, small time period. So they have to really hyper focus on the features of the First World War, which is the rapid technological advances, the change in military tactics, and also the different theaters of war and how that is different from the West, like how it's different from the Western Front and how it's different in the Eastern Front and how it's different in the Ottoman Empire, for example, in Egypt where they're fighting there. So I'm hoping they can sort of look at those different theaters and give us, unique flavor in terms of the combat there, especially Gallipoli, which was a clusterfuck, but that's another video for another day. And they also have espionage, where you can steal technology, do sabotage, affect supply lines, and incite revolt. Pretty standard espionage system. Espionage was important in the First World War, simply because, knowing where the enemy is or where they're massing up on the front, that's a good thing to know about. And also different technologies. I'm hoping it's not too unimpactful, because that can be a problem with espionage systems and strategy games, is where, the espionage is sort of tacked on, and I hope it's more complex here. They also promise a logistical system, and it looks like it's very similar to Victoria 2 or Hearts of Iron 4, where you'll have to get like specific weapons and supplies and food for your army. Every unit has a need, very similar to Victoria 2, with every unit has to have food, ammunition. It seems very complex in that sense. There'll also be a command and control system where you can structure your army into corps, armies, fleets, and air squadrons, and they all have to be staffed by officers and admirals. So think again, Hearts of Iron 4, which is I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to Hearts of Iron 4, Hearts of Iron 3, your typical real-time war games, because they're just taking a lot of inspiration. I'm hoping this isn't like a clone. I'm hoping it's not a clone. I hope they introduce some new stuff for us to play around with, because we've already seen Hearts of Iron 4, we've already seen Hearts of Iron 3. We want to see some new things. But another thing I noticed is you can capture prisoners of war and you can employ them into your factories, and there's also a dynamic economy. So as I said before, your troops need all these resources and you need to find them and exploit them, which is what I see in the game, or what I've seen in the screenshots, is that there is sort of an economy system that you can influence. I don't think it's as deep as Victoria 2. I hope it is, but it doesn't make sense in a war game to be dealing with economics or like in terms of like the free market and stuff like that. So I'll go into the good things that I like that I've seen so far in the footage and also the screenshots. The large amount of units and technologies, as I said before. The First World War, a lot of people get this wrong, saying that the First World War was very stagnant in terms of military tactics and technology, and that's not really true. Like, if you see the difference between 1914 and 1918, it's an entirely different style of warfare. Of course, in 1914, they thought they were going to fight in the old, Franco-Prussian war style, in line formations and all that. But, that was quickly filtered out in the beginning. And also the British, they weren't doing that sort of thing. The British actually had a professional army that was actually pretty good at holding off the Germans. Yeah, I hope they don't fall into the tropes of, World War One is they were just stupid for, you know, digging trenches. Like, so I hope they don't fall into that trope. And, you know, I like seeing, you know, a political system where you have to, you know, get better laws for your war gaming. You have to, you know, go through this political system. I'm hoping it's not too simple. And, you know, as I said before, I like the concept or game mechanics of having spies, because, you know, spying, you know, it was very important in this period. I think there was a woman that was, you know, playing both sides. I can't remember. There was a female spy, and they were like playing the Central Powers and the Allies. She kept switching sides. And also, I'd also noticed you can customize your units like Hearts of Iron 4. Again, a lot of different features here are going to be very similar to Hearts of Iron 4. And you can appoint generals and admirals to lead formations. And that's all the good things I've seen. You know, it's always nice, you know, sticking to, you know, good mechanics that work. Because when you try like a lot of new things in a war game, it can get very hairy very fast. And I'll go on to the negatives. Like, I'm hoping this game's good when it releases, but the negatives I've, you know, identified is that the map seems a bit weird. You know, the map doesn't look enticing for me. I don't really care, but for some people who are staring at maps all day, you know, this is a deal breaker, because if you're looking at maps and UIs in these strategy games, they have to look good. Like, if it looks kind of like, I would say, dry, then it's hard to play. But then again, I play like Rule the Waves 3, so I really shouldn't be complaining. So that's one factor that could be a deal breaker. Another is that, as I've alluded to before, is that a lot of the mechanics are too cloned from other games, and I want to see the developers, you know, own twist on the genre. Of course, you can't make everything different, because it's the First World War. You have to follow history. You have to follow, you know, the way that these armies fought, right? But, you know, you got to introduce your own spin. I hope, you know, that like these mechanics I've mentioned aren't too similar, or they aren't just simply cloned over, because it looks like that from the screenshots, but hopefully I'm wrong. And the start date is in the 1910s, which is a bit too soon for my liking. I would have liked them to start in the late Victorian period with the rise of Germany as an empire, you know, the Industrial Revolution, the beginnings of hyper-nationalism. That's what, you know, were some of the factors leading up to the First World War. And I think you missed that if you start in the 1910s. And also you had 1905 with the Russians had to tangle the Japanese in the Russo-Japanese War, which sort of, you know, influenced, you know, the Russian Revolution in a sense. Like, it contributed to that. So I feel like they are missing a lot with the history here. And maybe that's just me, my sort of interests, you know, with the Victorian period. But I hope you can go into the 1920s, you know, because it just seems like when you look at First World War games, they just focus on that small period of time. And hopefully they can make the grand strategy more engaging, or really engaging, because again, on the Western Front, it's very static, and I hope they can make that fun. And for me, like, when you're playing on the Western Front, I always find the tactical elements, or, you know, holding trench lines is way more fun than, you know, grand strategic movements like in Hearts of Iron 4, because, you know, the First World War on the Western Front really isn't that interesting on the strategic layer. Like, you do have these offensives that do break through sometimes, but then they get, you know, pushed back. It's only in like 1918 or 1914 is where you see a lot of movement on the Western Front. But then again, I'm only talking about the Western Front, and maybe this isn't true on the Eastern Front, where, you know, the developers, you know, have made it more mobile. You need way more provinces, way more. There's too little provinces. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little breakdown of this game. I'm very excited for it. I don't know when it's coming out, hopefully next year. Hopefully, I always like having more competition in the space, because it forces Paradox to do better. I think that EU5 was a response to all these other grand strategy games coming out, just to like put something out that's good, and that sort of forced them to make something. So hopefully this game also makes them make Hearts of Iron 5 better, because I just don't like Hearts of Iron 4 at all. And I feel like this is a more refined, would I say refined, more, you know, more like, there's no focus trees, so I'm really happy with that. There's no focus trees. That's the main sticking point I hate about Hearts of Iron 4, is that there's focus trees, and I don't see any focus trees here, and I'm happy for that. Seems a bit more similar to Hearts of Iron 3, as I said before, which I sort of prefer. because, you know, it's more complex, there's more things going on, and it seems like they're taking that approach. And I think the huge amount of units and technologies is going to play a huge part in this game being popular, because, you know, just having all those technologies to play with is going to be fun. Can the AI keep up? I hope so. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please like and comment, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks, bye. G'day warbanders, and thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you want to support me, please like and subscribe and tell me your thoughts about the video. It pushes my video more into the algorithm, which is what I want, and also how you can help me the most. But if you're more inclined, you can support me through my Buy Me a Coffee link in my channel description, or by signing up for a YouTube membership where I give out custom emojis and early access to videos I'm making. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.